And I'm just gonna talk about the elephant in the room. Hey, welcome back to a brand new episode of For the Love of Humankind. And let me tell you, it has been some time since I have recorded an episode For the Love of Humankind, and I'm gonna kind of talk about why. And it has been since October that I have recorded an episode. I made this announcement, right, that season two was coming. I was trying to hype up season two and did one episode of season two, and here we are in February. Uh, and I'm just gonna talk about the elephant in the room, right? Uh, I have not been great at committing to the podcast and what I've been wanting to do with it. And I think about it often. I've thought about it often during that time period, but here we are, and I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about what to expect moving forward, because I am gonna put more time and dedication into this podcast because I do really enjoy doing these podcasts. I have a lot of things that I want to talk about that are just happening in society, and stuff that I've been reading and working through it, and there's just so much to cover, and I just haven't felt like I have been true to myself in finding an outlet for that. And so we're back. We are back. Here we are. Technically episode two of season two, and I am excited for what is to come. And so let me backtrack a little bit. Let me talk about where I've been, what's been happening, why I haven't recorded an episode in 4 months almost. Because the last one, if you all remember, or if you're new to the podcast, the last episode we did was about on paganism and Wiccan culture, and then I went dead silent. Like, I didn't stream, I didn't record a podcast, I didn't do any of this, and there are some reasons behind that, and I'll kind of talk about that in today's episode. But I really just want to focus on some of the things that I've been doing. And so hopping right in, after that last episode, I created a list for season two of all the topics that I wanted to focus on. Topics that were kind of time sensitive, but 4 months later are still relative. And relevant? Yeah, relevant. That's the word I want to use. And so I have a great season lineup for this season, and I'm still excited to continue with that. We'll be producing podcast episodes twice a month. So we'll be getting that out on YouTube and Spotify both, and I'm excited to have some of these topics and invite people back onto the show. And so after that episode in October, I really was kind of just going through the motions. My mental health was not great. It was actually probably worse than it's been in quite some time. And I just felt like I was struggling with wanting to create content, wanting to have conversations and spend time editing and streaming, and I wasn't seeing the numbers that I wanted to do. And so I took a step back. I've spent some time thinking about why it meant so much to me that I wasn't getting the numbers or the listens or the likes that I was hoping for. And I realized that I was putting my self in pressure situations to reach a certain point because I felt like I deserved to be at that point, or reach, certain like goals, and thinking about why is that so important to me, right? Like why do I care about these numbers, right? Is it because, I see other people who I think are, for lack of a better phrase, worse at creating content than I am, getting numbers that I feel like I should be getting. So there's a sense of that entitlement there. But also, like, why did I feel like I couldn't create content because I was putting so much pressure on myself? And so really took a look at that and decided to take some time away, because one of the things that sucks is when you put so much pressure on yourself and you're not seeing the growth that you feel like you should be seeing, like, it weighs on you and your motivation declines very, very drastically. I had been streaming for 3 years and was not seeing any growth. I wasn't seeing anything that I enjoyed about what I was doing. Like, I just felt like I was just streaming because that's what I had been doing, and the only time that I played video games is when I streamed, and the only time I streamed is when I played video games. And it's been hard to take that step back, because it's what I had known for 3 years, right? Like, I had only streamed and recorded what I was doing every time I hopped on a computer, which was like every single day. And so I just didn't have that motivation. My mental health was shit. I was going through the motions in my work, and just like feeling like I was in an endless cycle of what I was doing. And that's going to be part of what I talk about today, because and you all can probably hear Ollie barking in the background. He's still going, but during that time I tried to do things that were going to be better for my mental health. And if you follow me on TikTok, I did and tried to do a 30-day challenge in which I did and learned something new every single day, and reported on it, and made this compilation of, like, starting in day 1, and then each day progressively got a little bit longer, like 30 days of what I was doing things for myself. And I stopped at like day 12 or 13, because, again, I think I put this pressure on myself of like, okay, well, I have to find something new to do every single day. Like, I can't do the same things. And if you're stuck in a rut, it's hard to do new things or think of new things to do, right? I was like, okay, well, I'm reading, I'm working out, I'm going to this coffee shop. Like, I'm exploring new coffee shops. Like, I am doing this or doing that, and trying to think of new things without having a plan for 30 days is extremely difficult. And I think that becomes part of the topic of today, of how we really as a society, or what has been popularized throughout the years, are these like challenges, right? Like, I think of like 30-day challenges. There's also like, fad diets, and I know this isn't really a challenge, but it's still like X days for this. Think of like the military diet, which is like a 3-day diet to help you lose weight, right? One of the things that I thought about doing during this time as well is the 75 hard challenge, which is based on a book for increasing your physical health, mental health, overall like confidence level. And I was like, okay, yeah, this sounds doable. Like, for 75 days, you work out twice a day for 45 minutes. One of those 45 minutes is outside, and you drink a gallon of water a day. You don't drink alcohol for those 75 days. You follow a diet. You read 10 pages a day. And so I was like, okay, yeah, like that sounds doable. I was like, oh, like I haven't worked out in a while. Like 2 days or 2 45-minute sessions sounds pretty simple. One can be indoors from my home. Like I can do some cardio stuff, and then at night I can go outside and run for 45 minutes. And for those of you that don't know, living in Michigan, we do get snow here, surprisingly. And so thinking about running outside when there's snow does not sound enjoyable. And so I actually started my own trimmed down version of 75 Hard this past week. And I have found myself to be in a much better space, like mentally, not only waking up early and working out, and I'm going to talk about everything that I'm doing in this, but really just like thinking about what I want to accomplish and think about where I need to do things for myself and not focus on, what other people are doing, like asking my friends to help hold me accountable. So I created this calendar for the entirety of February and set out times that I'm going to work out. I set out plans for recording podcasts, creating content, reading, making sure that I am applying for jobs that I think are going to better suit what I want to do in the moment. And really just thinking about how I can hold myself to this schedule. And having and starting to work out in the mornings at 7 a.m., reading after I shower before I go into work, drinking a gallon of water a day, making sure that I take my medication for my anxiety and depression, but also focusing on what it is that I'm consuming, like as food, like food wise, but also like mentally consuming, right? Like I am spending time doing these and being intentional with these things, and my mental health has increased. So there is some legitimacy to the 75 Hard program that's been going around, but it's also like one of the things that I've read and have seen researchers talk about is if you're only holding yourself to these 75 days, what do you do afterward? Right? Like, how are you continuing that? Like, are you just stopping at 75 days and being like, hey, yeah, like I did it. I worked out twice a day for 75 days, drank a gallon of water for 75 days, did all of these things. So I'm good. I'm done. That's it for the year. Like I'm chilling, like great, lost some weight. But it becomes that continuation, right? Like what do you do after the fact? And I think that's where these like X days challenge or X days diet really harms a lot of people, right? Because we focus on doing what we can for those amount of days and we're like, okay, like we got 3 days left to do this, or we got 10 days left or whatever. And once we hit the end of that, like most of the time you're going to resort back to what you were doing before you started that time slot, right? And so I'm trying to think of ways for myself to not only continue doing these things, right? Drinking a gallon of water a day, reading every day, continually working out, recording podcast episodes. And I think overall, like for me, it's finding a rhythm. And I think that's what got me in a rut before, because I was like in a rhythm, but I was literally doing the exact same thing every single day, right? So I would wake up, go to work, spend some time with Ollie, and then come home, play video games, go to sleep, wake up, go to work, spend time with Ollie, so on and so forth, right? So I'm trying to not get into a rhythm like that. I have moved stuff around my apartment to change up the feng shui and just start new. And I think that has worked really well for me. And one of the things that I suggest for those listening is if you feel like you're in a rut, changing furniture around in your home or your apartment will help you start to get out of this rut. As weird as that sounds, because you're at least changing something in your life, right? It's not like, okay, I sit here in the same spot every single day, and then I come back, sit here in the same spot every day. And I don't know what it is. I am not a psychologist. I don't know enough about the human brain and tendencies and things like that, but that little switch of change or something different makes that huge difference. And that's what I'm going to start doing. You know, I feel like I have not been stretching myself. I haven't been challenging myself enough. Like, I was just like, yeah, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life until I die. And as sad of a thought that is, it's a reality for a lot of people, right? Like, I don't want to work for the rest of my life. The chances of that being a reality, probably pretty slim. But what is it that I'm doing that I can actually make that journey a little bit more enjoyable, right? And I think that's where I want to go with this podcast. You know, I started this podcast with the intent of talking about human emotion, human stories, human compassion. And I was like, oh yeah, like I'm going to do, an episode a week, I think is what I originally started out thinking. And I didn't want to do quantity over quality, right? Like, I want to make sure that I am spending time focusing on topics that are prominent, things that I enjoy, things that I can bring people in to talk about. So it becomes more of that conversational piece. And, you know, it has been difficult, to say the least. Like, I'm sure you could talk to any person that does a podcast, and they probably spend a good amount of time actually just trying to think of the topics that they want to focus on. Now, obviously, you get your podcasts that will focus on, you know, just the random stuff and pop culture, or you get podcasts that do true crime. And I think we all know that there are a lot of, like, crimes that have happened in history that we can cover, and it's a lot that have not been solved, right? Or just weird crimes. So there's endless amount of content there. But trying to think of human compassion and human stories is a little bit more difficult in my thought process. And so I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. You know, I have some topics planned out for the season, you know, that focus on food scarcity, food deserts, and food tax, based off of a book that I am currently reading. I want to talk about the housing market and lack thereof, housing options and opportunities for individuals. Talk about how we have a labor shortage, which obviously is not necessarily a labor shortage, whereas it is more so like a living wage shortage that we've seen throughout COVID. So there are a lot of different topics that I want to focus on that impact individuals on the daily, right? And by no means am I an expert in any of these areas. These are areas that interest me, that I'm going to do some of my own research on, bring people in to talk about some of these areas, because I know that I don't know everything, right? And there are people out there that have been doing this work more intentionally, that really just focus on those specific areas and being activists and advocates and working through that stuff more than I see myself, or more than I'm doing myself. I feel like I'm still in a stage of doing the research before I do the work. And I also want this podcast to be sort of that journey too. And I want to bring, my listeners or viewers on that journey to talk about these things, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff that we ourselves do not know. And sometimes we don't know that we don't know that. And so I want this to be a learning and challenging experience, not only for myself, but for those that listen and watch, whether it's on YouTube or on Spotify, and go to a position that this podcast becomes something that you can listen to every other week, or watch every other week, that you can get something out of, right? Like, I can be entertaining, right? And I can make jokes, and we'll have some of those podcast episodes, but like, I don't want to say I can't do that every time I record a podcast, but I want this to be an educational experience, for myself as well. And so I kind of want to share the direction I want to go with the podcast, and share where I've been at, and talk about that. I am super excited for this season. I hope that those of you that have watched and listened before, or who are brand new, that you are excited for this journey as well. Because I do think it's exciting. I think that anytime you find someone that you can relate to, or someone that you can gain information from, or just enjoy listening to their voice, like, that is a good thing to have, to be a part of your routine. So I hope you all are ready for this journey. I'm excited to be back and recording episodes for the love of humankind. And let me tell you, this lineup this season is going to be great. You're going to get new episodes every other week. They will come out on Sundays. And so I hope you're ready, because I am excited to be back, to be recording podcasts, and to be providing you all continual stories and education, and the things that we talk about. And if there are topics that you're like, hey Jeff, can you talk about this, or Jeff, can you help me with this, or walk me through, or talk me through this, like, I encourage all of that feedback, and ideas and opinions, and bring those, because that just helps me, right? Like, I have the things that I want to talk about, but I also know that those that listen and those that watch also probably have things that they want to hear or talk about to start a discussion. And so, again, welcome back for the love of humankind. Happy to be back. Happy to have you back. We will see you in 2 weeks with a brand new episode of season 2. Thanks for hanging out. Like and subscribe, and drop that follow on Spotify as well. So be safe, be true to yourself, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.